Hi, everybody. I am Blake Cabot. I am the owner of Career Learning. And today I have Walt Duncan, who he's been a teacher for us here at Career Learning. He is also the podcast, one of the podcasts with Brian, and it's all about payroll. He's been doing this for 2 decades. He is an expert, and we're going to talk about how to manage a payroll department. So appreciate you guys coming. Brian's teaching a couple of classes that we'll talk about later, and if you have any questions and answers, just put it in the chat, and I will ask Brian. And there's some resources like links, the slideshow that you're about to see. That's all there under the resources tab down below. So with that said, Walt, take it away.
All right. Thank you, Blake. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time today. I'm glad to be here to discuss this wonderful topic with you about how to manage a payroll department. So we're going to discover some strategies for team building and for building strong teams and optimizing those workflows, navigating the compliance, and leveraging technology to enhance our accuracy and efficiency for our department as well. All right. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get into it. So, look, so building a strong team, that is the heart of payroll success, right? So, you want to be able to recruit and retain skilled professionals. So, they need to have that technical expertise, right? And some of those people may have it if they're already seasoned vets in the payroll industry, and other people have an aptitude, right? That maybe just joining or getting into the payroll industry, right? So they have those teachable skills that you can apply. And some of that is going to be learned through continued education, right? So there's going to be those things that you need to learn as you go, right? And so payroll pros must understand systems, the different tax laws that are applicable, and compliance regulations, right? But you also need to have a strong communication, right? And you need to have communication skills within your department, right? Because that can determine the success of a payroll, right? So if you don't have good internal communication between your payroll department and your payroll team, a lot of things can go awry, right? And so you need to have communication between your HR and finance departments. All those things are crucial, right? So if you're not in charge, or we in payroll aren't in charge of employee changes, for instance, right? And someone is owed a retro, but it's not communicated to us, that could make an employee unhappy, right? And that kind of segues to the next thing, which is the problem solving. You need to be able to problem solve. So some of this you can do while you're in the middle of payroll. You can either do some proactive auditing to help yourself identify and resolve any issues efficiently, right? Because you don't want to always be reactive. I know a lot of times we are in a reactive state when it comes to payroll. So we want to be proactive as possible. And that's by implementing any audits that we can, any checks and balances that we can. So we want to do all those things ahead of time to make sure that your team is built for success, right? All right. Next slide. You
Okay.
want to create a collaborative culture. So again, speaking of communication, you want to encourage the open communication. You don't have that open dialogue, right? So you want to create a environment where team members can share and ask questions, right? You don't want to make anyone feel silly or less than because they ask a question or they have a different way of understanding. Remember that we're all different and people learn in different ways, right? So someone could learn through application and actually doing it, but so also someone could learn by reading and actually just seeing screens and screenshots of stuff. And so you have to understand that as a payroll leader or a payroll pro, that everyone communicates and learns differently. You want to be able to also collaborate with those other departments at your company, right? Namely, HR and finance. Those are typically the ones that we work most with from a payroll standpoint. And sure, we want to make sure that we're aligned on different policies and changes that may impact or affect payroll. Again, I go back to those employee changes. If someone's direct deposit is updated, if someone's anything that can impact their pay at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're aligned and communicating and working with those brother or sister departments that we have in our company. We want to conduct a regular check-ins as well. That's internally in your payroll team. and with those HR and finance teams as well. You want to stay, that's how you stay updated. That's how you address any concerns early ahead of time by doing those check-ins, right? So for me personally, I have a weekly check-in with my team every week. We process payroll every other week. And so we're still meeting on a weekly basis to discuss anything, to discuss any issues that may have occurred on the prior payroll, any concerns that we have, and we meet ahead of payroll as well to discuss anything that we should look out for, right? I'm always communicating and sharing and forwarding emails with my team and making sure that they are. I sometimes I over communicate, but I want to make sure that they're aware of everything that's going on so we don't miss anything, right? Because at the end of the day, we're here to serve and make sure that people get paid correctly for their livelihood. All right, going to the next slide. We want to understand the value of cross training our staff. So, cross training is making sure that people are well versed in your payroll processes, right? And understanding that your trained staff can step in case there's an unscheduled absence or someone is super busy during those work periods or payroll periods. So we want to have that continuity during the peak times, and being cross-trained can help us do that. There was a scenario where I worked at this one childcare provider or education provider, and they had multiple systems that they processed out of, and everyone had a chance, an opportunity to process out of both systems just in case something happened to me or I was out on vacation, because I was the one who was the primary on the North Carolina schools that we had to process for, but we had to have someone step in if I had an unscheduled absence or anything like that. And by doing this in cross training, we create a versatile team, right? So you create team members that are capable of handling multiple tasks and being able to work in multiple areas, such as the tax compliance, employee benefits, and reporting. This is how you create a well-rounded team or payroll professional, right? This is how you're going to do it. And that way, everybody's continuing to learn, everybody's continuing to grow, and this is going to help you be more cohesive as a team. So in case I'm busy, someone calls about my school, my teammate is able to answer because they have been cross-trained on those things, right? And by cross training, we minimize the knowledge gaps, right? So we reduce the risk of a team member is unavailable, and we ensure that there's seamless payroll processing again. So we want to make sure that we're cross training and continuing to train for continued education as well. All right. All
Okay.
right. Go ahead. You have something to say, Blake?
Nope.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. Um, Sam Royster wants to see your contact information. I think in the last slide you show your contact information, so we'll get
Yeah.
that to you.
Okay. Roger that. All right, so the next topic we're going to discuss is creating efficient payroll workflows. So this is extremely important in payroll, is that we have workflows that are efficient, workflows that are seamless, because we want to try to get away from as much human error as possible. So we want to define each step clearly, from data collection to payment distribution, right? And so that creates consistency and accuracy, because you're going to see this as we go along these slides. You're going to see certain words come up: efficient, accuracy, consistency. Those are all good things when it comes to payroll, right? And managing a payroll department. And so how can we do this? We can eliminate bottlenecks. So we can automate data entry to minimize errors. So what a bottleneck is that when you have an overload of data and you may not have the bandwidth or the personnel to enter any changes. So say you have a large company and you have over 3,000 employees, and you're in an industry that has a lot of turnover. That's going to create a bottleneck for that person who's trying to enter all the changes if they're the only one solely responsible for entering changes in data, right? So that's what you want to avoid as a payroll team, right? And you want to use payroll software to efficiently track employee hours and streamline calculations, right? So the less manual a process is, the better your payroll is going to be, right? So in terms of payroll health, right? The healthier your payroll processes are, the healthier your outcome, our payroll outcome is going to be as well, right? All right. Next
Okay.
slide is setting timelines and deadlines, right? So it's important, of utmost importance, that you establish clear payroll deadlines and checkpoints to ensure that there are timely payments and reduced errors, right? And you want to make sure that you communicate those things. So you want to add that communication back here, right? It's just to make sure that you're communicating. So say you're at the HQ or you're at the corporate office and you're servicing multiple uh, locations across the globe or across the country. And you want to make sure that you communicate clearly and establish those deadlines with them, right? And just don't leave it to chance, right? So I know that sometimes at the place I work now, some people may get tired of getting communications. I have my team communicate at least twice in a week ahead of payroll check date week so we can make sure, hey, remember, this is when time edits are due. This is when the payroll adjustments are due. Please have this in. Remember, payroll is going to lock down at this time. Remember to check this, remember to check that. And it has created more efficient workflows, that automation and clear timelines to help streamline our payroll processes for what? Accuracy and timeliness, right? We don't want people to be underpaid. We want people to be paid correctly when it comes to payroll because look, I'm sure that some of you, I can speak for myself. I want to be paid on time. I want to make sure that my account is correct and good to go and that all my bills are covered. So this can help make sure that we do that as a payroll department. All right, next slide. So look, compliance, right? There's a lot of complexity to it. And you want to make sure that you're navigating the ever-changing federal, state, local tax laws as well as the different regulations that may impact benefits, overtime, and wage laws, right? So things are always changing. And it's imperative that you stay atop of those things so you're aware of them, right? So that may be you signing up for a career learning, a webinar or career learning certification. That may be you going to the state or agency site and signing up for a newsletter or an email reminder about different changes that are happening, going to the irs.gov and getting a newsletter from there so you and your team are being updated. That may be reaching out to your payroll provider and making sure that you and your team are CC'd on any alerts that the system can alert you on, right? Say because that a lot of uh, HCMs and payroll providers are capable of doing those things. So you want to make sure that you are giving yourself enough avenues to make sure that you're getting that communication so you can stay atop of those things. Because one thing you want to avoid, and I know that your business is going to appreciate, is if you can keep them from accruing any penalties and interest on any federal, state, local, global, or any benefit overtime laws or anything like that. Your company is going to really be happy about that if you can help them avoid those things. Then you want to develop strategies for managing compliance, right? So again, conduct those regular audits to ensure adherence to regulations. Use your payroll software with automatic updates for the latest legal changes, right? Again, I mentioned that earlier. And you want to stay connected with legal experts for guidance on evolving laws. LinkedIn is a good resource for you to have. There's different sources out there that you can connect with and different people that you can connect with that are certified and verified and vetted that you can get your data from. One thing you don't want to do is like go to a blog and get someone's opinion about something or about a software. You want to go to an actual place or place that you can get a credited or verified resource, right? To make sure that you're remaining compliant and um, not going to be hit with any penalty and interest. Trust me, it can. We just did a show on the podcast where some companies were charged millions because of compliance issues where they miss a change, where they didn't update a rate for taxes, where they didn't pay someone for overtime because something was missed and it ended up costing them hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, right? There's a lot of, if you Googled it now, you would find lots of stories out there with big name corporations, some that you're probably familiar with, that have paid millions in penalties and interest because they missed some compliance issues. So next slide. So again, preventing payroll mistakes. So this is going to help us manage compliance and risk mitigation, right? So we want to avoid costly errors such as misclassifying employees. That was one of the, we did a recent show, and that is the number one common payroll error is misclassification of employees. So that could be full-time, part-time. So that means this person really is a part-time employee, but we have them in the system as full-time or vice versa, right? That is one of the most common things. Or we have them in the system as an employee and they're really a 1099 contractor or vice versa, right? And so there's a lot of different things there. Underpayment, people being underpaid is a lot of different issues where the system didn't update for someone. There was a recent minimum wage change law that occurred in the state or the industry, and something wasn't updated for these people, and now they're owed all this different money and they're not happy, right? There's a stat out there that says that most employees start looking for a new job once there are two paycheck errors that happen to them at their job. So once we mess up twice, they're already considering leaving, which can impact culture and the environment there, right? So we want to make sure that we
Wow.
avoid all these things. And so we want to avoid failing to report wages accurately as well. We have to report those things. So there's a lot of BLS reporting out there that you have to do, that you or your company may have to do to report on wages with the state. And we want to make sure that we're compliant with those things. So, we want to have effective compliance management and risk mitigation strategies to ensure accuracy and avoid those costly mistakes. Look, mistakes are going to happen in payroll. Look, it's a part of the human experience, but it's how we bounce back from those things and how we turn those things around and make sure that we can avoid those things in the future. If you have a lot of manual processes in place, try to do your best to find ways to make those more automated. If you can leverage something, which is going to segue to the next topic here, if you can leverage a technology, that's something that you will want to do. So speaking of leveraging technology, see how I did that there, kind of segue perfectly. All
Yeah, no, that was
right.
very smooth. I thought that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
So we want to have efficiency, accuracy, and scalability with our technology. So, right, we want to make sure that we have the right payroll software and which streamlines our processes, can reduce our errors, and supports growth within our company, right? So, look, it depends on the nature of your company and your payroll and/or your payroll that's definitely going to determine what type of software you need, what type of payroll software. You may not need a software with all the bells and whistles, but it may be a nice to have, right? But you definitely, if you're in the education um industry, like you work in California, like California has this law in place that's for meal penalty, right? So if they work 5 hours and without a break, that fifth hour, they get a 1 hour meal penalty, right? And so you may need a system that can calculate that for you instead of having someone to actually calculate that manually or by hand, right? So we want to make sure that we stay abreast of any trends in payroll technology. So want to make sure that that includes the integration with HRIS systems for seamless work data flow. And we want to make sure that we are aware of any changes to self-service portals for employees to help them view their pay slips and manage their information, right? A lot of payroll providers, and I'm sure that some of you that are on this call now, there's a lot of emphasis on employees being able to go into the system and make a change for themselves. So that means to their demographic data, so their address, their taxes, and those different type of things there, and for them to be able to view their slips, right, and manage their information. And so if it's not easy to use and easy to navigate, then that can create a problem, right? You want to make it as easy as possible for the employee to understand how to use the system. And you do that through maybe a training and everything like that, and have the employee understand, look, we are empowering you to be able to update and take control of your own data and leverage the technology with us, right? And you want to also make sure that you have automated compliance checks to ensure adherence to laws. That's enough said right there. And look, having the right technology can help you with data security because with rising cyber threats, technology plays a crucial or critical role in safeguarding the employee data and sensitive payroll data through encryption and secure access, right? So let's leverage that technology. So it's going to enhance our payroll efficiency. It's going to keep our systems up to date and protect sensitive data, right? So because look, data data crime or cyber crime is a billion-dollar business right now, $100 billion business, and they're saying that it's going to increase by I think 100. There was an article out there that we read sometime last year, so it may have changed. And you can fact check me on this, but they said that cyber crime is going to increase by over 100%, right? And I think the number that they said there was like a $300 billion. Is that and that even some cyber hackers are they're developing their own software as a service, hacking as a service to go in and create these threats to payroll servers and payroll issues. Like I still to this day, we have one of the big name payroll providers at my current place of work, and because the hackers are always trying to get in, I get a lot of phishing emails that are from people that look like they're my counterparts or my coworkers, and they're telling me to update their direct deposit. And so this is why it's really important to make sure that you're leveraging the right technology and protecting yourself, your company, and your team from threats like that. We're like one of the last. I tell my team this one of the last lines of defense. We're like the guards at the gate before the data goes out the door. We're that last line of defense, right? And we have to make sure that we're doing our best to take care of the people that we're servicing. And I think that ends it. So, do we have any questions?
Questions? Well, I've got one. Um, you were talking about processes. Do you have,
Mhm.
so how do you keep track of your SOPs? How do you keep track of your standard operating procedures so that everybody kind of follows the same bouncing ball?
So look, we have a cloud um, drive that we use internally here, and so once we create those, we create them in two different ways. We create documents and we create video SOPs as well here, and so we just spell those out. Once we update them, we send them out to my team. We research them collectively together, and we go through those different processes. This goes back to the open dialogue or open communication, right, within your team, and you go through it together and make sure that all bases are covered because you may, again, like I said, everyone learns in a different way. So you may word something that makes sense to you, but you needed to make sure that you need to word it in a way that someone else understands. And that's a problem that I've had earlier in my career when I first started payroll is that I would put the right stuff down or create SOPs in the way that I understood them. And
Right.
instead of doing it for someone else to understand. So those are a couple of different things that I do to maintain and
And where
make
do you
sure
store them all in a Google Drive or something? Or
we have an internal drive. It's called Box, so it's like encrypted drive.
okay,
So you can
gotcha.
do it there. So any encrypted drive, anything that's secure, I would suggest doing it there.
Okay, awesome. I use Loom videos. I found that actually we had a situation where an employee just took off and just disappeared, and we all
Yeah.
thought it was all documented, and then we started trying to use it, and none of us could. None of us could figure it out.
Wow.
It created total chaos. These are always words to wise, using your team to kind of develop that approach. I think that's a great idea. I don't have any questions. Kathleen says that's a great reminder. But I do want to talk about your courses that you got coming up on April 28th. You're going to be doing a payroll certification and
Yes.
then payroll final paycheck compliance course we have on demand. Here are the courses
You need me to stop
that
sharing?
Walt do. No, yeah, you can stop share, or you just leave that up for a second.
Okay. Okay.
And we've got a 20% discount, and it is professional 20. And I will type that out for you guys if I can type. And we try to do these every week. Come back. We will have probably one next week, and you guys can learn everything there is to know about HR and nonprofit education. And if, in the meantime, always join us for one of Walt's classes, and we will see you guys later. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you for your time, all.
Okay, bye bye. Thanks, Walt.
Thank you.